welcome to what could be the most controversial panel of the entire summit. Your live stream sucks. And we're going to tell you why. My name is Zel McCarthy. I'm joined today by Steve Lieberman, Kobi, Danon, and Raymond Roker. Raymond is the head of content at AEG. He is the person who is, I guess, to blame for all of your favorite artists being, tempting you with FOMO during the Coachella live stream every year. Kobi Danon is one of the original founders behind Sound Nightclub in Hollywood. And he is a man who doesn't believe in sleeves when he doesn't have to wear them. And Steve Lieberman is a lighting guy extraordinaire. He's the founder of SJ Lighting. He's been in live production for over 20 years. There's a lot of experience on this panel. I'd like to start with a tough question. I'll put it to Steve Lieberman. Steve?
Yes?
Why does everyone else's live stream suck?
Well, let's first say that why does it suck is kind of tongue-in-cheek. We're not here to attack. It's just more of like a broad stroke, or at least I'm not here to attack. But, from what I've seen out there, currently, obviously we're all under house arrest. It seems like everyone's trying to deliver a product to the audience to engage. And I would say one of the primary issues that I've seen from what the product that's available is that it almost seems rushed, that the content is being presented in a very quick and maybe a little unorganized type of fashion. Like, I had an idea this morning and camera's live tonight, where I think there can be a little bit more kind of protocol set up in order to evaluate what you want to deliver, and a little bit more thought maybe should be going into some of these live streams as to what you're actually trying to deliver. A concept, maybe a script, and other formats that would maybe line this up so that your audience can engage longer, and whatever the product is you're trying to deliver has a more clear and concise path to market.
Raymond, dovetailing on that, you have been behind some pretty massive live streams, but even the best live streams still are competing with so much more visual content. I think we're all very aware of what's available to us on television, on streaming platforms. Everywhere we go, we are empowered with our phones to watch whatever we want. How is it that you or anyone can create something that's compelling regardless of what the content itself out there you're competing with is?
Yeah, I mean, to pick up a little bit on the whole title of this panel, I actually find that I obsess a little bit more with those who have a lot of resources and a lot of market position, but then still deliver something pretty underwhelming when it comes to sort of the live stream experience. I'm far more critical of that. I'm actually quite enamored with some of the lo-fi, interesting takes on streaming. Not necessarily like every bedroom concert that's come out in the last 6 weeks, but some of the things that both are happening now, but have also just been happening in the last couple of years. So in terms of like, where do you get the quality from? Where do you focus on? I think it's not just production. I think it's storytelling. I think you need to come from a place. I think if you look at some of the best successes in terms of live stream, I think they come from a very authentic point of view. And I think if you start with a very entrenched sort of POV, then you're going to be providing something that people are sort of at the ready for. I mean, I think the worst thing you can do is just feel that just by nature of the fact that you can flip the switch, you should sort of be live and someone's taking up time in their day and taking up space on the interwebs. And I feel that those that come from a place of necessity and a place of almost like, we're really, at least in our own minds, I mean, that's all you can work off of, bringing some value to the table, I think is a great start, period.
Kobi, you guys have at Sound in the past experimented with different kinds of broadcasting. How is it that you can translate that live club experience into a watch at home internet viewing sesh?
Well, we experiment for a while. We broadcast every Tuesday our Space Yacht show for the past probably 2 years-ish. And that is a pretty cool video to watch. Not the same when you watch a party without the audience. It's completely different. It's very difficult to have this entertaining, but we started streaming a couple of weeks ago from the club every Saturday, and we had a couple of amazing shows. And we have multiple, like 5 cameras, so you actually have a full stream of the light show. But I gotta be honest, aside from the music that is nice to listen in the background, it's almost as fun as watching paint dry. It's not there yet. It's not. And I just started experimenting with the Oculus Quest, which is the virtual reality goggles. And I believe that would probably be the closest that we will be able to get from home to an environment that you can enjoy watching something like this.
So is that basically like people are wearing a VR headset and then it's like you have a 360 camera in the club that is simulating the experience of being there for everyone who's...
That's the concept, yes. The Oculus is basically, you used to connect your VR goggles into your computer and then watch it. Oculus Quest built everything into the goggles, and you can walk around using your feet or remotes in your hands. And if you are in the environment, let's say that you are at a concert, and you can look around in your Oculus and look up and look down and even see, even if it's virtual people around you, it still will probably be more satisfying than watching a stream with an empty room with somebody playing music.
I think one of the big hurdles right now, kind of going with what Kobi's saying, is that, it's live event producers and club promoters and club owners are putting together a live stream in order to deliver a product. But a live event is not a live stream. A live stream is more in line with a television show or some other broadcast. So you can't view them as the same product. They can't be delivered as the same product. So just watching a DJ perform, if you're just background and you're listening to music, it's the same as streaming Spotify or something else. But if you're trying to engage an audience, I think, one of the hurdles that is out there, one of the challenges is how do you deliver something that's going to engage the audience? I like where Kobi's going with this, with the virtual reality, in order to engage, so that it's something that actually gets their attention. It's going to keep them for more than 30 seconds going, hey, you played some great music, but I'm still home by myself, or I'm home with my family, and I can't go anywhere. So we're not partying, we're not dancing, we're not mixing it up. I'm not talking to my friends. So how do you engage? So that's the big challenge.
I mean, I think that's a challenge that you guys have kind of had to solve over the years as the Coachella live stream has evolved. What have been the kind of key questions that you were asking yourselves when you were approaching that challenge?
There's lots of different questions. I mean, it kind of, it's a very big broadcast in terms of there's a lot of dimensions to it. So we ask a lot of technical questions. We think about, we've experimented with VR, we've experimented with AR and mixed reality. I don't disagree that there's a big piece of that in the future of the live stream experience. I do think that there was a lot of rush towards the technology before we really resolved sort of the why. And I would also argue that not everybody wants necessarily that to be the experience. I don't think all of it is just, sort of put me in the time and place. I think they'll serve a purpose for those who want to have the more deep, almost like the same as being there, sort of close to it, though I'd argue you'd have to get people bumping into you or stepping on your shoes or spilling drinks on you. But I think there's also just people that want to watch a really great film, a really great, concert film, for lack of a better term. And I think and I think there's also people that want an inside access point. They want to be backstage. They want to be in the final moments before an artist goes on stage. They want to see the post show glow. So I think we've been trying to look at all those facets of storytelling, whether it's, how do we take, to use an overused term, how do we make it more cinematic? That's been a huge priority of ours. How do we present stories that are otherwise be lost in the shuffle of a lineup that it's, 150 live acts. How do you go and dig and burrow under? Our Coachella Curated was an area that we decided to sort of bring those stories to life last year and sort of tell those third and fourth and fifth line artist stories and origin stories. That was really important. And then how do you have a really big moment that everybody's sort of talking about, whether it's, in the middle of the set, AR experience or something related to a surprise performance. It's almost an embarrassment of riches in terms of the opportunities. But, just to give credit to some of the things that I saw during this sort of COVID period, I really enjoyed watching the Desert Mirage, or Digital Mirage, sorry, I'm desert minded. The Digital Mirage one that I think Proximity's YouTube channel did. What I liked about it, if you didn't catch that one, several weeks back, was that, of course, it was DJs in their bedrooms, but it was also DJs sort of like, at the sort of their studio table and maybe with their cat in the background and a drink. And it was like, I thought you really got an intimate sort of inside look at sort of maybe how they approach their creative process. It felt very welcomingly voyeuristic. And open and sort of eclectic because everybody was different. Everybody approached it different. I just thought it was really refreshing. And I assure you that will not be the last time. We've sort of opened up a whole new trove of content, right, Kobi? That's going to be
100%.
Yeah,
100%. I believe that it's either right now for the current landscape. As a consumer, I either prefer watching a really low res production, and I will give an example. D-Nice, perfect, great music in the living room, not trying anything. But when I see a DJ putting his flat screen behind him and two ferns left and right, like, God, like seriously, man, this makes me just want to pull my hair out.
Yeah. When you talk about like, go ahead, Raymond.
Well, there's 100%. I mean, I'm not gonna make news by naming names, but I watched something just the other day, and it was a big act. This was on YouTube, and they did sort of like the virtual show. Sway Lee did this several weeks back, and it was kind of like the stage dives and all this sort of like make believe things in a room in the house. I almost think that's not the direction, right? I don't want you to fake it. I want you to just be real with it. And if you've got the production value, take it to the hilt, do something really, really captivating. And if you don't, actually just own the fact that, and like Kobi was saying, just keep it real. And I think that
make it about the music.
Make it about the music, make it about your personality. That is, it's a golden age actually of things on both ends of the spectrum, which I think is the most exciting piece of this. I would hate everybody to think they needed to do something at the level of like what a Coachella could do or a Lollapalooza.
But at the same time, people who are watching at home are choosing between something on the level of Coachella, something even like the D-Nice, the first club quarantine, which seemed really organic, was of course very managed and orchestrated by his management team. How do people who are just starting out really break through, or maybe who aren't starting out but who are new to this kind of digital space? How do you break through in the cacophony of everything that's out there? To the panel.
I gotta say something that I believe that the Instagram Live is not gonna work. It doesn't work. People don't have the attention. If they are on Instagram Live, this works for exactly 5 minutes. They skip, they go there, they write a text message. It's either Instagram is going to have to figure out a function that when you are watching a live stream, you can, minimize the screen and you can do other things, or it just doesn't work. Like the attention span is, if you get somebody in for more than 5 minutes, you're lucky.
People don't have the attention span when they're in a live event. I mean, you own a nightclub, people sit there next to their friends. They don't look at each other. They look at their phone. So,
I know,
live streaming's been around for a long time, but you've been live streaming events that have thousands of attendees. Now we're live streaming events that are basically TV shows. You're in a clean set. So how does that translate into energy and what that needs to be in order to deliver this product, right?
Yeah,
so
I think, yeah.
It needs to be rethought. I don't think you can take the festival and the club mentality and you can move this over there. It needs to be more of a broadcast mentality and a television show mentality. And you need to be able to keep refreshing content in very short increments in order to maintain attention from you and engage your audience.
In the chat of our webinar, which I invite everyone to jump into and ask some questions, fight with each other, do whatever you would like. There are a lot of people asking about pricing structures and should there be a free tier and a premium tier when artists or collectives or what have you are offering a streaming kind of event. What do you guys think about that?
I want to comment on that. I had a conversation yesterday from the beginning of this, when we offered a few artists that are local, that we want to do something. I am very against, at least for this time period, to put our hand out for anything. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I think that we are here, first and for all, is to entertain people. That's why I do what I do, is to entertain people. Now, people are in stress. The economy is bad. There's no jobs. There's no money coming in. The last thing that I think we should do as a community is put our hand out to the fan to deliver this content at the moment. Gladly, I will take any check of any sponsor to do that, but I won't feel comfortable taking it from the public.
Just watching.
Tell Josh, tell Josh to put himself on mute.
Oh, sorry.
I think I'm actually a little bit different minded in terms of the monetization. Of course, you know, I work for a large company, but I'm also just thinking from the perspective of the audience. I think audiences should have options, and part of the option is a premium experience. And I think that every artist is going to have a different way of sort of looking at their talent. I don't disagree with you, Kobi, in terms of the moment we're in. I do think we need to be super sensitive about what we're asking people during what is a really brutal moment in time in terms of what people are going through, suffering, and what, frankly, the future is going to hold for some people that are out of work and the economy that's going to be, you know, impacted by this. That said, I think there's lots of people that are also just trying to get by and create a content reality for themselves, whether they be artists. There's tons of working artists out there that don't have, you know, lots of floats to get them through this period. So I think Patreon and other sorts of ways of getting dollars through the door, I think actually should be celebrated. But I think all of it comes down to whether you're asking for money or asking for attention. They're both the same thing in terms of like your request of others. I think you need to have something of value to exchange. So I think, you know, production costs of how you get out the door with something. I think that's almost like the second consideration. The first consideration is, do you have something worth our time? And do you have something worthwhile? And I think start with that. That's almost just got to be the gold standard. I want to pick up a little bit quickly on something Steve said, you know, again, not trying to be the contrarian here, but I actually am skittish about anybody that comes from the broadcast and TV side of things. I hear you on one perspective that you have to treat a big level production like a TV show in the sense of you need to be thinking about the viewing experience as opposed to what the fan experience is on site, because those are two very different things. We get into that sort of debate all the time in terms of like, where do we strike the balance? But, and maybe I'm parsing here a little bit in terms of, you know, the wording, but I actually feel that a lot of the freshest thinking, of course, is not coming from the people that have been the gatekeepers on how you do broadcasts, which is for the longest time been people that own the trucks and do all this and have all those, the big toys. I think the most compelling, incredible stuff, again, D-Nice, what did that take? Took his iPhone in his apartment in New York City and a great playlist, and he crushed most people's very expensive productions and most TV-minded things that were coming out during that week. One example I'll give on the live stream too is the folks at Circle. I think what they do with their sort of DJ set, far-flung places. Talk about a concept, high value concept. It's not the most, listen.
But exactly, you hit it. You hit it
Right?
on the head. Exactly
What did I hit? Tell me what I hit. I want to know.
Exactly. Let me tell you. The circle one.
Yeah.
If you compare this to a stream right now, if you take
Yeah.
Boiler Room is still, you're streaming a party. The people are behind you, in front of you. There's the narrator. It's the whole thing. Circle is exactly what we can do right now, because you take an amazing environment. You're only shooting the artist, but it's not boring because the camera angle goes into the they put him on the top of a mountain or on top of a castle.
Totally.
That is where I think is the content is going at the moment.
Yeah.
It should be
They've
going.
come up with a great thing, and those things routinely get 1, 2, 3 million views.
Yeah.
It's a pretty formidable thing they've built.
Fantastic.
Steve, you and I had talked about this previous to the panel starting, the need to have a new perspective in what people are doing, that being the motivating factor. What do you think, as somebody who's worked in live events, we lost Kobi, there's Kobi. Steve, what do you think that would be acceptable as a new perspective? How do people come into that? How do people find out what it is for themselves as an artist or as some kind of production creative?
Well, I think right now, especially with this current situation, obviously we're limited to what we can deliver. But I think that these live streams and these events that are going on, if there was maybe some break in some of the subject matter that was going on, if there was a host kind of curating and commenting throughout these events to break it up and almost to go back to the TV show style, just to kind of offer the alternate perspective, like a Guy Fieri diners, drive-ins and dives kind of show where you go.
Because people want
maybe,
more Guy Fieri. That's what we're missing in this.
But maybe like you feature, like the host can go live stream into D Nice, and then he can go, okay, that's like a 5-minute segment where you can keep the audience engaged with those high level of views, and then go, okay, now we're coming over to the West Coast, a new style. Here's something else we're looking at. And like, there's more of a run of show format to just kind of keep people on their toes, like what to expect. Hey, for this live stream, we're going to be looking at 5 different DJs in 5 different locations with 5 different environments, and not an hour's worth of whether it's a beautiful landscape or you have production of a high quality, low quality, or something in the middle, where it's just, you're basically just getting this little iPhone perspective into, watching somebody go like this for a little while, a little commentation and a story about what's going on, maybe commentating on some music that's going on, something else. Give us something tangible, something that we could consume outside of just, we all love music. Obviously, we're all in similar, disciplines inside our industry. We all love that part of it, but without the social interaction, that's part of what this whole thing is, the sociology of, we like to congregate together, bump into each other, step on each other's shoes, loud music, and that whole environment, we don't have that. So how do we engage and kind of mix it up and keep you on your toes and what's next, instead of something that feels predictable?
Julian Von Plato from our chat says that platforms like StreamYard have changed the plain live stream with hosts and interactive shows, making it more interesting. I think supporting what you were saying, Steve. And, there's some other questions we're getting in the chat and directly. How do people get into live streaming when they don't have the resources that say an established nightclub or a festival brand have? What do you think are the fundamentals that just you have to have before you can press record and get out there?
I think Steve made a good point about maybe the nuance between broadcast structure and like broadcast producers. I think curation is really at the heart of it all. And I think you're talking about curating a journey for the audience. And I think that just comes with a level of care and commitment and inventiveness. The beauty of it today is that, and this kind of rolls into your question, Zel, is that it doesn't take much. I mean, frankly, I honestly feel that if you're struggling to get the resources that you feel you need, then you're probably pushing beyond what you should, try to maximize for your first outing, right? Like, you got to right size your production to the audience and to the brand that you're leveraging. I mean, if you have a big brand, then you could bring resources to the table. If you got a medium-sized brand, you could bring medium resources to the table. I think that the most elegant stuff is done at the level that you would want to do it for the audience that you serve. If you got 1,000 people that are going to show up for your Instagram Live or your Twitch stream or whatever, fantastic. That's a great audience. You don't need any money to get to the audience. You need I mean, honestly, you don't need anything more than your cell phone. You really don't. Every bit of software is out there. You can buy lighting or something basic, cheap. You can, I mean, I haven't experimented with these too much, but cloud-based switchers and different things in order to, you know, even go from a couple of different locations. Zoom at this point could kind of be your whole show. I think that that's the easiest part of today is technology and access to it and the dollars. If you're talking about the real spend, the spend comes in clearing artists and, you know, paying for big trucks to cover, you know, a square mile of festival. That's when it gets expensive, but like there's no need to even be in that business, right? Unless you're a producer of a festival.
Right, production costs money.
Production costs money to do a live show, but that should also be commensurate with the scale. If you're at a scale that you take a truck to produce your show, well then heck, you should have the resources to make a live stream around it at that scale too. Like I think it's all conveniently right-sized to the people that should be on air. I think you're as big as in some ways you should be. I may say a little cold, but I do think it sort of fits. The internet works beautifully that way. It's a great equalizer, you know, in terms. So
that was a velvet glove slap in the face from Raymond Roker. In case
no, that's an actual
gentle
way for you. No, it's an encouraging thing actually for people to feel like you're great just as you are. Like just go live today. Like listen, personally, I don't have the audience that the company I work for does, but I haven't earned that audience. So I can go live right after this and just, you know, say, hey, there's going to be the after hours thing on my channel. So I'm going to give you the plug right now. I'm going to go live on Instagram and you can just tune in. Yeah, maybe I'll, you know, 30 people, maybe 100 people will tune in, but that's all I need to reach those people is my phone. So I think that's a hurdle. That's kind of like a false hurdle that people put in front of themselves. And my encouragement is that you can start today, period.
I would tune in for that, Raymond. We're getting a question from Caroline in the Q&A. She's asking, how long should live streams be? And are people getting live stream fatigue? There are so many things to watch on any given day from every genre of music across every like spectrum of performance type. What is the ideal length for someone's live stream to keep people's attention so that it doesn't contribute to that burnout?
I think it's a bit of a mix, because if people will have live stream the way I did it at home is I download the Twitch onto my TV. I have a Sonos system or any kind of system, and I have it on. And it doesn't matter how long you have it. If you have it on your phone, it's a different, or even on your laptop, it's a different viewing experience.
Yeah. Because
you get distracted. If it's in the background, you go in and out. I can watch Solomon live stream for 48 hours.
Right. Well, that's it. Is it a primary focus or is it a secondary focus of what you're doing?
Sound has been streaming for 3.5 hours, and we looked at the numbers. They're pretty much consistent, so we don't have a lot of drop-offs. So
right. But would you say it's one person watching for 3.5 hours, or it's in and out?
I don't know. I'll ask my mom. See what
I think this is another one of those questions that allows you, or sort of puts it back to the person asking it, right? I think you've got to know your audience, and I think you've got to invest the time in understanding what you're trying to provide for them. Because again, the closer you are to your audience, the better off you're going to be able to make a determination. Now, you're always going to work with some level of presumption, right? Presumption that people care, presumption that people are going to tune in for as long as they are. That's the beauty of the technology. The data will start to show you. So Kobi's going to, you know, ask his mom, he's going to figure out, you know, are people there for the whole 3 hours, or are they not, you know, or, you know, are they engaged, or they just have it on the background? You can do the work and you can find
Yeah. Oh, froze.
Oh,
Roker's frozen.
But something else should only be 15 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
We are down to the last 15 minutes or so of our panel. So if you're watching, please jump in on the Q&A. Hit us up on the chat. We want to get your questions answered. There are a few questions here about rights issues. We're not going to address those directly because that was definitely a topic for elsewhere. But in terms of creating a quality visual audio experience, what are some of the things people can keep in mind in terms of how they work within those rights issues, whether it's clearances for records or you know, just a matter of making sure something is cleared for live and for on demand later? Is this a challenge that can kind of inform quality? Is this something that you guys think is not worth worrying about?
Honestly, I mean that if this, by the way, this is an idea. If people are going to start buying live streams just like you buy a TV show or a song on iTunes, with probably the same pricing, you can pay royalties in a similar way. Just, you know, a thought.
I think it goes back to, I think it sort of goes back to sort of right sizing your ambitions to your audience. I think if you've got a big audience, if you're a well-known DJ and you're going to upload a mix and you get paid a lot of money to come and play, you got to expect someone's going to be knocking at your door and want some royalties or going to take down your mix. I mean, listen, you know, you're playing in the big leagues. If you're Coachella or Lollapalooza or any of these people, you gotta be buttoned up. I think if you're super scrappy and indie, no one should really be coming after you, and you can sort of, I don't say like be cavalier about it. You should be respectful to the extent, you know, that you feel you should be. But I think there's also some pretty heavy-handed and arcane sort of licensing hurdles that a small player that's got, you know, 1,000 viewers is going to struggle with. And if your platform on YouTube is difficult, you know, find the platform that you can, you know, go rogue with. But at the end of the day, everybody is going to come around eventually and expect that they're going to get compensated for use of material. So I think you shouldn't be under any illusion that this runway you have is limitless. You're going to have to sort of button yourself up, pay your taxes, you know, do your stuff on time. That's just, you want to be in business, you got to be in business.
I think that illusion has turned into a reality over probably the past week or two, because again, when this pandemic hit and everybody got locked up, live streams became very prevalent. There was a lot of them. People are out there, mostly like Facebook Live kind of live streams, bedroom, you know, home studio kind of stuff. And now week after week, I'm seeing a lot of these, like they're up for 10 minutes and then they put up a post, sorry guys, I've been shut down. And I'm seeing that happen over and over again. So it's a very valid bit of like, very valid situation that's happening right now. And like you said, if you want to play someone else's music live and present it to an audience, the producer of that music is going to want to be compensated for that.
There are two questions right now, one from Chawa in the Q&A and one from Cody in the chat about platform. Chawa is asking what platform is advisable in terms of Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Kobi, you had mentioned that you didn't believe in the longevity of Instagram Live. Some of these relate to rights issues, but I think also this speaks to finding an audience. What is, in all of our panel's opinion, the preferable place for live streams to happen in terms of social platform or elsewhere?
YouTube and Twitch, in my opinion, at the moment. This is the only one.
What's your demographic?
Yeah.
Right. I think each one of these platforms also, you know, whilst they're broad, I think they also focus on different age groups. You know, Twitch is a gaming platform, so I think just by the nature of what it is, you're going to get a much younger crowd. You know, Facebook, you're going to see a wider crowd and probably in the upper age limit of what you're looking at, and YouTube probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I would say all of the above. I agree that to what Steve was saying, and really understanding your audience. Some people, you know, will bring up, oh, you know, I heard I should be on Twitch. And I'm like, all right, well, do you feel your audience is on Twitch? You know, you may have an audience that doesn't even know what Twitch is. So I think, and I agree with Kobi about the functionality of Instagram Live. I don't think it goes away. I think they're going to look at ways to sort of think about functionality where you can like schedule and save and do other ways of sort of tracking. I think it was almost like an accidental happening that it became such a prevalent place. But let's look at the functionality of what happens when you're on Instagram. What are you doing? You're just sort of surfing and ADDing out and sort of looking for material and just really going down the rabbit hole. And so when you come across something, but you're not going to have that habit on Twitch. I mean, guess you could, but you'd have to be a pretty avid Twitch user, right? So Twitch, you need to schedule people, you need to tell them, you need to send them a link, you need to show where to go, and that has advantages, but you're also not going to get sort of this sort of transient viewership that stumbles upon you. Same for YouTube, a lot less so. You have to sort of be proficient. And I just think pushing go live is like, that's never going to get any easier for people, and I think they'll always have it. But that's only to say that every one of these platforms sort of serves a function, and you should try to be as proficient across them all. You should never be myopic and think that you're on the one that's going to be the fun for you. And maybe you'll have an added benefit of having some way to monetize one or more, and that'll end up buying some of your loyalty as well.
Speaking of buying, there have been a number of questions about pricing and tickets. And I think we can zoom out a little bit and ask the question to the panel. What do you think we're looking at for the next year? Obviously, we are not going to be having events like we have, at least not for the foreseeable future. Do we envision a time where we are now just accustomed to paying real money for virtual events? And is this something that smaller promoters and up and coming artists should be expecting to build into their own development plans? No one wants to answer this question.
I mean, I'd say it's going to take time until we get a grasp on where we're going, how we're going to do this, and how we're going to price it out. Because if you're watching it at home, I believe that it's got to be like you're watching TV. So there's some sort of a marketing aspect behind it. If it's a commercial in the background or something, although it's not cool, but I don't know, man.
I think with the current situation and the economic crisis that's going down with the extreme rates of unemployment and people not being able to make money, I agree with what Kobi said earlier in the call, is that monetizing this, whilst would be fantastic, I don't think monetizing it from the consumer during this pandemic makes sense. I think you're going to push more people away than you will gain audience. If there's a way to monetize it with sponsorship to where, some of these larger organizations and companies would come in to support the live music industry and help us put things out for the audience. I think it needs to be free to the audience, and then you're going to get this big group of people and
product placement. That's what I'm saying.
You get some product placement right there. So maybe
is that a paid for bottle of water, Kobi?
It should be. It's going to sponsor his next live stream.
I think if you look at the near term, I would probably agree that this is a shaky time in which to establish anything firmly. But yeah, in 2 to 5 years, the landscape, I think there's no question that there are going to be some new monetization models. It could be an all-you-can-eat sort of streaming platform that you're paying a subscription and you're getting a lot of material through. Obviously, there's already the players out there, the OTTs, the Netflixes of the world that are Amazon, starting to have more opportunities that are either live or as live. Obviously, YouTube. But I think that monetization comes in many different forms, and I think you can never lose sight of that. Audience is a monetization, building data. This conference was free, but now they have all of our emails. That's monetization. There are sponsor placements like your water in the shot. All of that are ways that you can think to creatively monetize. I think, again, it goes back to knowing your audience's sensibilities and sensitivities, and not be too presumptuous, but be inventive about where you can get the value prop back from doing this. But there's no doubt that I think artists are going to have to chart the future of there being some way to monetize this artist or, folks that own festivals and other IP, because there will be an increasing, growing global hunger for virtual events. There just will be, even as things return to normal, there's no doubt that there's the technology and the sampling that people have gotten even over this era, this COVID moment, I think is going to leave people with a lot of interest in looking for more.
I just want to disclose that the Disco Shark here in the background is not sponsored. It is from the artist. I'm not promoting sound or the Yuma tent at Coachella. It is purely a coincidental decoration. For the last few minutes, I think, a lot of people are really scared right now, and rightly so for the reasons that we've discussed. What are some things that we can be excited about in terms of the technological and artistic opportunities that live streaming is affording us? Steve, I know you had thought about this previously.
Well, I don't know that I can elaborate any more than what we've discussed, but what I'd really like to see is a new perspective. Again, like not treating a live stream like a live event, because it's not. I'd like to see more, if you're going to enhance your live stream outside of your bedroom studio, which can just be great all by itself, but if you're going to do something further, I think you need to understand what the camera sees, and you need to understand that you don't need to be a broadcast engineer, but I think you need to evaluate and use some common sense perspective when looking at what you're presenting and what your product is. So understanding light levels and how to maybe change some camera angles and be creative with a few things to keep and engage your audience. I think that's the next evolution of what this needs to be, and that's already happening. I'm already seeing increased production levels, but just as far as the production on how they're delivering, not what the show is behind them. So there needs to be more understanding of what your camera sees. So your camera is your audience now, while everybody else is behind it, and you need to maybe put up a preview monitor and see what things look like, and carefully curate in detail what that is while you paint your picture that you're going to deliver. And a little bit more time spent on, even for those who are just doing their bedroom stream, maybe spend a day before you're going to stream and script out what you're going to do, and maybe break up some of the music with some information. I don't want to call it information, but talk to your audience. If you just cut a new track, tell us what it is. It doesn't need to be a 5-minute dissertation, but maybe just break for a minute, talk to us, explain the new music, play for a few minutes. You have to break it up a little bit. There needs to be something else short of just sitting back and zoning out into, la la land.
Yeah.
I think this is I hate to say anything's the best because of, again, being very respectful of the moment.
Yeah.
But I think in some ways this is a breakthrough moment for live streaming, period. And it is affording us a new way of thinking about things that service an audience and service our fans and friends in ways that, we maybe were not as imaginative, several weeks back. Just by force of what's all required right now. We're all back at our homes or temporary homes or wherever. And I think with that is going to be a lot of new folks that are entering both the conversation and the technology, right? There's winners and losers anytime you have a moment like this. But I think in this case, the winners aren't just the people that, own all the this or the big, players that can just kind of grab more wealth. It's actually some really like lo-fi or tech forward independent players that are going to be able to like gain some real mind share and market share during this moment. And I actually think that's going to be great because it will surely be a broader coalition of people, more diverse ranks of creators. And once we sort of come out of this cloud, they'll still be around, and people will now have a new thought about where they might want to get entertainment. And frankly, it'll just be more competition for Coachellas of the world, and all that's healthy and good, So I think this is great for people that maybe didn't have as much of a seat at this conversation 2 months ago.
I think you actually inadvertently answered a question from our Q&A from Mike about how things will proceed after whenever that starts. Kobi, did you want to jump in on this final thought?
Listen, whatever they say is how I feel, but I hope that we're going to develop a little bit more on the VR side, because I think this would be an incredible time to develop it. If people can be in their house and look up, down, and all around, and you're in a show.
Yeah.
I think that's the key, because again, I just started experimenting 2 weeks ago.
And it'll be people like Kobi that come from a place of truly understanding what that experience is and should be or shouldn't be, to go and create that. And I think that's really important too, that the stakeholders that are actually part of the community and are pushing things forward are the ones that actually help to script from a technology standpoint, and not just the people that understand technology and have no real stake in the outcome.
I think
a question from our...
Sorry, just 1 second.
Yeah.
I think this industry in general, going back to the beginning of my career, the beginning of everyone's career here, has always been a laboratory for new ideas, new concepts, and to kind of stretch the limits of what we're trying to do. This, whilst is a terrible situation, if we can get something positive out of it and use it as an opportunity to move the needle, especially when we do come out of this, and we will come out of this, to take this to transition into what the next phase of live production and event production is, because it's been a moving target since the beginning anyway. So this is just something else that's organic that we're going to be able to take and manipulate and use as another delivery device for our audience.
We have one other question from the Q&A, and I'll put it to anyone. It's from Steven. He's asking, how do you determine whether or not to do something that's a live stream versus uploading a previously recorded piece of video content? Is that something that we need to answer as a question, or does it matter? Is one better than the other?
I mean, I think like any big TV moment, to pick up on you know, Steve and I's thread, is going to have a mix of both, right? The Olympics, Super Bowl, everything is going to have a bit of archive content, pre-recorded content, time shifted as live, and then full on live. I think you have to sort of do a production worksheet. You know, you have to take that day, take that week, take that month to plan it and think about what works for you. There's an ease in just going live, like we're just live, like it's almost just go rogue and just do it. But there's also a certain elegance to like planning some segments that you may record in different locations, bring it all together. That's for you to sort of, that's the curatorial process. I don't know that one serves the audience any better than the other, depending again on what your audience expectations. I will say and caveat that, you know, I know that, for example, you know, we learned that people on Twitch, it's live or nothing, you know, in many ways. They want it live. Will they respond to VOD? Perhaps they will, but they really expect that a live show is live, not time shifted. In the YouTube world, you know, we time shift a little bit and it's more acceptable. So know your platforms, I guess, as well.
That answers an earlier question from
I'm trying to do a multitask answer.
Beautiful. What are you guys most excited about that's coming up in your streaming schedules for the next week or so?
I'm going to jump in the pool in a little bit.
That's not something we need to have live stream.
Will you go live with that?
For you.
That's it. That's about it.
Keep that to yourself, Kobi. Steve, anything you're looking forward to watching?
Yeah, tea times at 7:30 tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Now we're streaming this coming Saturday, every Saturday, but this coming Saturday, I'm excited about two artists, Eli and Fur, that we love, and so we have them coming up.
Now, have you spoken with them at all about a creative direction, or are they just kind of taking it on their own?
It's pretty basic because we are not doing anything extra aside from a very cool light show and multiple cameras angles. So that's about it.
Cool. Raymond, what are you streaming in the coming weeks?
We're working on some things. I don't know if it's been announced, so I don't want to, I'd have to check my socials to see if we can talk about it, but we've got some things coming up we're excited about for the summer, on the the Golden Voice AEG side. And I'm gonna give a shameless plug, because if you don't, you don't ask for people's vote, you ain't gonna get it. So our Coachella live stream is up for its first Webby, which is exciting. Last year we launched Coachella Curated, and it is up for a Webby. We're duking it out with the Star Wars event. So vote for us at the Webbies, and we'd appreciate your support. That's it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys. If there are any more questions, I feel like all three of our panelists will be happy to answer them. I will too. You can find us on socials. You can hit us up in the chat for the next few minutes. This has been a fantastic conversation, and it certainly allays, I'm sure, some people's fears, while also exciting and motivating others. So thanks everyone for joining, and stick around for this afternoon. There's some great programming still to come.
Thanks, Zel.
Thanks, Zel.
Bye.
Thank you.